Hi, and welcome back to Freak Boy Runs. Today, I want to talk about the training regimen and how I built mine and how I'm still building it. You know, on the surface, it can seem like a real simple task to get better at running. Just start off slow and increase your pace and mileage as you go, and you'll get better. And that's true. But unfortunately, that's not going to get you to realize your full potential. That's not going to get you to be the best that you can be. Not even close. So, I'll talk about how I modularized my approach to the training regimen and how I bolted on one piece at a time. And I still have a bunch of pieces left to bolt on. And that's how I know I'm still going to get better. So what are the modules that I've added so far? Well, to start off, the first thing, it's not really a module at all. It's your aerobic base. And my aerobic base started with my 20,000 steps a day streak. And to this day, that serves as my foundation. Now, I'm not saying that you have to walk 20,000 steps a day before you can run. But I am saying that if you're new to running and you want to ease yourself into it in a safe manner, counting steps is an amazing way to build up your aerobic base. After I did it for a few months, I just decided to start running on a whim and was immediately able to run 5 miles. So it doesn't need to be 20,000 steps a day. It can be 10, it can be 6, it can be 5, whatever you're comfortable with. Or if you're a runner, just build it off running. That's totally fine. But the point is, you have to build up your aerobic base, because without it, you've got nothing. After creating that initial aerobic base through just walking, the obvious first module to bolt on was to do some actual running. So I started off slow, just once or twice a week. Built that up over time to 3 or 4 times a week. And then eventually, after a year, deciding to start a running streak, which I've said before, I don't recommend it for everyone, but it definitely works for me as a motivator. But those were the first steps I took to actually building up a running regimen. Is to bolt on some actual running and make it regular. The next thing that I added was a long run. And a long run is very crucial. It helps you build onto your aerobic base a lot. It also helps you psychologically get past some of those mental blocks and hurdles about being able to do longer and longer distances. Gives you the chance to, week by week, build that long run up slowly until eventually a 5K and a 10K, they don't seem far at all. And so even if you're only training for 5Ks and 10Ks, I strongly recommend a long run of, 16K, 10 miles and further, because it's really going to help you even in those shorter distance runs. Next up was fueling and hydration. I already knew how critical hydration was, and I would bring water bottles along with me and try to carry them, and that just wasn't working because it would give me cramps in my shoulders, and so I stopped. But eventually I just realized all I needed to do was get a hydration vest, and so I solved that problem so that I could have hydration with me on my runs, especially the longer runs. But fueling also is such an important thing, both during your training, because you do need to fuel while training, but you also need to practice your fueling for races. And I kind of found that out the hard way my first couple of races, trying to drink and trying to fuel while I was running hard. Found out it wasn't that easy and I needed some practice. So I definitely recommend adding fueling and hydration strategies and bolting them on to your regimen early on. They're fairly easy to add, and the practice will pay off come race time. This next group of items I'll do sort of in a rapid fire mode, because they're all related to the first one on this list, and that is education. I've said before that I thought, why do I need somebody else to teach me how to run? I know how to run. So wrong. And I found out that it may seem obvious now, but there's so much information and so many good resources on YouTube. People like Jason at Strength Running, Run with Jane, Goran Windblad, Goran, sorry if I'm butchering your name, Stephen Scullion, the running channel, and especially Ben and Mary at This Messy Happy. All these folks taught me so much, and one of the most important ones, and one of the things I learned from them, was the 80-20 principle. The idea that you only run 20% of your miles at a hard effort. The other 80% has got to be an easy pace. It's very critical to avoid injury. And kind of to go along with that, I realized that heart rate training is the best way to control that and to make sure that you're doing easy miles versus hard miles. And so I got myself a heart rate monitor, and that's not absolutely necessary. It's kind of an expensive item. You can use the wrist-based versions on your watch, but if you really want accuracy, you do need to get a separate monitor, chest strap, or arm strap. Very useful. And then another learning that I got was the importance of an actual training plan. Even if you're not training for a race, but especially if you're training for a race, you need some structure And a structured plan is so helpful to keep you doing the right things at the right time. And then, as a benefit from the structured plan, I also bolted on things like speed work, interval sessions, hill repeats, things like that I wasn't doing at all. That kind of came along with a structured training plan. So go onto YouTube, read books, do what you need to do to educate yourself. Don't assume that you'll figure it out on your own. The next thing that I bolted on was strength and conditioning. And I really regret not doing it earlier. Strength and conditioning is the one thing I would say that so far has improved my performance the most. In addition, it helps to protect you from injury. And so, for the amount I was injured my first couple of years running, I really think, you know, some sort of, even a simple S&C program would have made a world of difference. The next thing was warm-up. Now, I, like many other people, thought for a long time, hey, I'll just do the first 1 or 2 miles, first few kilometers, really easy, and that'll be my warm-up. Good enough. And it's a good thing to do, to be sure. Start out easy, but it doesn't serve as a complete warm-up, particularly before a hard interval session or a long run. You really need to have a good warm-up and activation routine before those types of sessions. Warm-up and activation is going to help wake up your muscles and get them ready for all the stresses that you're about to put them through. So don't skip on the warm-up. We're getting down to the last few elements that I've added thus far to my training regimen. And next was a focus on recovery and doing some foam rolling, which I had known about for quite a long time, really ever since I had started watching the YouTube channels. But such an easy thing, yet it took me a long time to finally get it added. But it's so critical to help you with recovery, stimulate blood flow to your muscles, help them come back faster. And along with foam rolling, really around the same time that I added that, which has been about a year now, is I found myself a really good sports massage therapist. And that's kind of an expensive item too. So certainly it's optional, but it definitely helps me. The people that I use are not only very knowledgeable in massage, but actually know some things about running as well. So they really know how to look for the problem areas and what to target on any given session. And I found it to be very beneficial. The last thing thus far that I've bolted on to my training regimen is coaching. Now I work with Ben and Mary at this Messy Happy, and they do actual one-on-one coaching, but they also do group coaching where they have basically a large group of people at all different levels, different training plans for each of them, for each of the different levels, I suppose, not for each person. And then they do live feeds every Sunday and have a Facebook group where everybody in the group can communicate and help one another and root each other on. It's a really cool community, and that's what I do with them. I probably will try to do some one-on-one coaching at some point in the future, but right now this group method has been working well for me with my schedule. And well, I recommend coaching of any kind if you want a cool concept and a cool group. Find out the next time that Ben and Mary are starting their next group. I think it'll be around probably the end of 2024, early 2025 for their spring group. It's really quite cool. Well, that's everything that I've added so far. I suppose one thing I forgot to include was, right from the beginning, I've kept a detailed logbook. And that's been a pretty important part of my training regimen. You know, not only do I keep technical details in there like mile split times and heart rate data I get from my Garmin, but I also keep other stuff like daily weather information, how I'm feeling each day, what shoes I'm wearing, and some other nostalgic stuff like, maybe some critters I saw on the trail in the park, hot air balloons, maybe an old friend that I ran into. I saw my good friend Fani today. I haven't seen him in months, so we had a real nice chat, and that's going to go in my logbook. So, some of that nostalgic stuff is really nice, but from a training perspective, the nice part of keeping track of how you felt, the shoes you wore, weather conditions, is you can compare. Maybe you can see how your body reacts during one time of the year versus another, or how you performed on a given specific training session with one set of shoes versus another, or one temperature versus another, or one fitness level versus another. So it can be useful to be looking at that kind of stuff, and having some notes is very helpful. But there are plenty of other items still left to bolt on. One of those is strides. That's something that I'm planning on actually working on this week, on incorporating that. I'm on a recovery week right now, so it's a good time to work on something small and new like strides. I'd like to incorporate actually a track into my sessions. Some of the specific interval sessions I do are meant to work on a track, but I don't have one convenient right now, so I had to keep looking and see if I can find any good options that'll work for me. Some other things like recovery items like ice baths, Epsom salt baths, things like that would be good. Also, a gaping hole in my training regimen right now are mobility and stretching. Those are two gaping holes, I suppose. So both of those things are things I need to work on. Then there's some kind of more higher end items, things that cost money, which is why I haven't done them yet, like detailed gait analysis. Maybe help me find some problems with my form. VO2 max test in the lab. Not necessarily going to help me with my performance, but be useful and just at least interesting to know how it's changing year by year. Also a strength analysis to see if I've got any imbalances one side of my body versus the other. But these things cost money, so we'll have to see when the budget is there to incorporate those. And all of these items, you know, the reason for bolting them on is to try and eventually help me take off some minutes and possibly only even seconds, but take off some time off my PB. So that's going to do it for this week. We'll wrap it up here. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and like and subscribe, comment and share if you feel like doing that. And until next time on Freak Boy Runs, Freak Boy out.